I love artists, bands, composers, whatever it might be. I love anybody who's driven to do something different or something that hasn't been done or is frowned upon, whatever it is. It's just finding that thing that really inspires them that isn't something that somebody else, or at least the mass amount of people, are doing. That's the sort of thing that I'm all about. Super driven to find that thing.
Oh, so you drove all the way down from Massachusetts that weekend, or that?
Yeah,
Friday?
I did. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, it was. That was a drive for sure. The drive back was a little bit more fun, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember Ever Forthright a decade ago. We would all hop in our van. We had a 15-passenger van, and we all lived in Long Island. So we'd hop in the van. We'd go scoop up Chris in the city. We'd drive like 3 hours to Rhode Island, play a gig for like 4 people, and then drive all the way back home.
good God, man.
Yeah, it was rough. I had fun that night though. That was look, I'm no stranger to playing for only a handful of people. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it happens.
Yeah. Even when you're playing shows that are, you're in bigger venues and maybe the band has bigger numbers, whatever, you still sometimes play smaller shows inadvertently. Like you want them to be bigger, but then the turnout isn't as sick as the venue could allow for, or whatever it is, like you don't meet the rooms cap, and that's just part of it. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
But it was a fun show. I had a blast. And that was our first time playing together as a group. So, and it was exciting just to be up on stage and to like test the rig and do it, try the songs out, because writing those songs, I felt like I wasn't even sure if playing them live was going to be all that doable. There's a lot of different like weird twists and turns and stuff.
How do you feel about it now that you had that run? Like the songs they work for a live context, you feel like?
Yeah, I think it worked okay. I feel a lot better. I'd love to keep playing shows though and just keep refining it, and sort of finding our groove, so to speak. But overall felt pretty good. Personally want to tighten all my playing up as well, but
and that's tricky to do when it's like one show, like a one-off show. You don't have the opportunity to do like 3 or 4 nights in a row at least. Like even that show we played, my chops were so much more together than the show we had like 2 or 3 days prior.
Yeah.
So even just like having one warm-up show going into something else is like really game changing.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you played 2 shows before that one, right?
Yeah, one show like right before in Brooklyn, and then our first show just before that was like I think 2 months ago.
Yeah, gotcha. So you definitely could feel the difference between that first show and the third one that we had played. Yeah.
We didn't even meet up to rehearse for the second 2. Like,
nice.
Yeah, we just kind of. Well, that's the benefit. I intentionally wrote my newer songs to be more like lead sheet based. I don't know if that's terminology. I mean, it sounds like you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So like, most of my songs can be condensed into, and I do have charts for them, like 2 or 3 page charts, like lead sheets where here's the melody, here's the bass part, and then here are the chord changes for some improvising. And, I took that approach for a couple of reasons. One, I don't have a ton of time to write through compose stuff like I used to, like 10 and a half minute, like not every song could be a 10 and a half minute epic.
No,
you know what I mean? That just takes too much time.
Yeah. Of course.
But also I come from that space of like improvise. So it's, the songs are really mainly a vehicle for like, okay, cool. Let's get through these melodies. Let's get through these riffs, but then like, let's improvise in this section for a good, like 3 minutes.
Right.
That's sort of the whole point.
Yeah. And that's something that I've been taking inspiration from too. And was a big reason that I wanted to start a trio as opposed to like a full band, I'd like to start bringing that kind of flavor into our performances as much as I can. But, I don't know. That's something that is definitely on the, like, if I had to list out my weaknesses, one of them would be, I could definitely be a stronger improviser, and that's why I want to start pushing it more. So I want to get better at it. I feel like the best way to do that is that's a number of things, but a big part of it is playing with others and improvising with others.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're getting away with it, I think, pretty well. Even if you were to ask a jazz musician, like how Jared and I are doing as a duo on stage, even with like a restricted solo section and pre-recorded bass parts and stuff.
Yeah.
We're doing that mainly out of necessity because it's hard to find it's hard to find a bass player that we jive with.
Yeah.
It's like, that much harder to book a rehearsal with 3 people as opposed to 2 people.
Sure. Yeah. So you had bass, was that backing track for that set? I was so focused on your playing and your drummer's playing. Okay. Gotcha.
The bass is plugged in there.
Yeah. That's what we did with all our synths and stuff. I had a bunch of stuff going on, like a low growly bass synth and, some lead synths and stuff, just to sort of paint in the space more or less.
Yeah. Yeah. So generally, how do you feel about backing tracks in terms of how it can affect a performance?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on what is backing tracked. If it's layering that boosts the overall show and kind of creates a bigger experience for folks, then I'm kind of all about it. I guess it also depends on what you're going for, right? Like if you want to have just a raw performance of just the musicians on stage, then by all means, you got to go for that. But if you want to have a bigger production, backing tracks, I don't see anything wrong with using them. But I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah. I don't think for a moment that it has anything to do with cheating or not cheating. I'm not even going to entertain that for a second. I think that's a stupid conversation to have. It's
agreed.
And I've been targeted for so many blog posts like, this guy has a conversation about backing tracks and are they cheating or not cheating? It's like, pass. I'm not reading this.
Yeah.
There's obviously like a functional purpose for them. Like for me, it makes playing like a possibility for me. Really, that makes like rehearsals a possibility, and it makes playing shows a possibility. I don't think I would have played 3 shows if it weren't for using backing tracks. I just, it's hard to find musicians to play, especially musicians the kind of musicians I need. They all want to get paid. They're like, oh, you want like a jazz guy that also does metal? Well, I'm kind of like a dime, or not a dime a dozen, the opposite of that. I'm like 1 in a million. like good, you got to throw me at least like $100 to show up.
Yeah.
And that's like on the low end.
For sure. And that's definitely a difficult thing to contend with at any level below, the upper echelon. Yeah.
I don't know what it is though about. I didn't have an opportunity in Ever Forthright to play the way that I'm playing now. Mm-hmm. Like I feel really like myself now with this music when I'm playing on stage. It feels like I'm playing the guitar. It feels like I'm doing the right thing.
That was the vibe that I was getting too from your performances. It really felt like it was you. I mean, this might sound kind of silly, but playing guitar, it felt like you were really playing, like not that you were, like what I did is all my solos and all the riffs, everything was completely scripted note for note. I knew every step of the way. But it definitely felt more like you were bringing that improvisational aspect to your playing. And I think that whether that's what you're doing or not in the audience, your brain knows it. You know what I mean? Like there is a slight difference in that to the inexperienced listener, to somebody who doesn't otherwise know. But for somebody who does know, like I think I could tell, it's pretty impressive, man. And it definitely, I don't know, it changes the performance in a way that I think is very unique and especially in this genre, you don't really see this a whole lot these days. I feel like,
and I can sense that energy on stage as well. I could sense like I'm onto something here. I'm doing the right thing. This feels right. Like I'm, whether they're really just walking in from the street or they really know their shit, I'm pretty sure anyone out there listening would know that this band is just like doing their thing. versus perfectly scripted, like backing track driven type stuff. And
Right.
that isn't saying one is better than the other. I'm trying to think of an example, like someone walking in off the street, watching Nirvana play for the first time, versus someone walking in off the street and seeing. I guess I'll go with Periphery. Like,
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
they've got they got a bunch of backing tracks, and often the bass is backing tracked as well.
Sure.
And it's a different experience. Like, I think those are two different emotions. Whether you know one is backing tracked or not, I think the listener feels something different, even though they don't know why they're feeling something different.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, they don't notice it really, but their brain does, is the feeling that I get. I don't know if you've ever watched, do you know Red-Letter-Media by any chance on YouTube? It's these guys who,
No, take it down.
they just review movies left and right. They're great, super entertaining. And they have the, different shows and whatnot. One of them is this dude that reviews Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3, as opposed to 4, 5, and 6. The prequels, and he just tears them to shreds. I mean, he really just decimates all hope of enjoying these movies ever again. And it's so funny. And he has that line in there where he says, like, he probably didn't notice, these aspects of the movie, but your brain definitely does. Your brain does. And that always stuck with me. I know it's not a music related thing, it's about movies, but it's still about, he talks a lot about like the creative process that went into making these movies, and the writing and whatever, the cinematography, all these different aspects, the CGI as opposed to the practical effects. And actually that was exactly what he was referring to. It's like, you probably couldn't tell that it was green screen back when you were watching it in a theater, but your brain could tell. And that's why it has like that uncanny kind of vibe to it. So
You use the word uncanny. You're referring to uncanny valley type stuff, where you feel like you feel a little uncomfortable and you can't put your finger quite on why.
Yeah. It's like,
okay, so I think we're onto something here then. Like, that Nirvana performance versus that. I don't want to keep on using Periphery because they're a good band, and
you know what I mean?
Like, but I guess I'm going to. For better or for worse, there is a part of your brain that can tell there's something different about these two bands. Like, yeah, there's guitar, there's bass, there's drums, but there's something different here. And I think part of it might have something to do with like fluctuation in time. Like not sticking to a consistent tempo, like verbatim consistent tempo the entire time. Yeah,
sure. Yeah, because I mean, you weren't on a click at all.
Most of it is not. No.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So maybe in a couple of different areas, but
there's cues like, okay.
Sure.
Go into the next section.
Are you sending those off, by the way, or are you controlling that like with your feet, or is that scripted in a DAW? Keep using the word scripted, but
yeah, it's all in there.
You got it in a box, got it.
Yeah. Or like we'll have a click, but it's a really loose click. So instead of like a like dit 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 dit, we'll do something like dit dit.
Oh, nice.
Dit. So that way we can just play a little bit more around with it. Because then you could do things like, if you're like, then you're kind of really grooving with that tightness, and if it's a little bit longer, you can kind of do a little bit more push and pull. Again, it's not great. I'd rather not do it at all. I'd much rather just play with a band. But if I'm gonna do that fully, I need two people. I need at least a bass player, and I need at least a keyboard player, because I also have synth parts and keyboard parts. So
yeah, that'd be a pretty killer band.
Yeah, that's the goal.
It's really funny that we're talking about this, because this is exactly sort of the vision that I had for my solo project, which is, eventually bring elements of that into it, where you're not on a click, and you're just as a band playing together, and you're improvising, and you have a loose idea of what you're going to do going into it. But I don't know. I feel like that's not it. It's definitely not a thing that you see in our world very often. I feel like in the prog metal and overall metal world, in those genres,
Yeah.
I feel like the improvisational stuff is, especially on stage as a band, it's just not really there.
And improvisation doesn't necessarily mean soloing. It doesn't have to mean soloing. Like if you listen to like some doom metal, like they might just loop
Oh,
a section that's just
sure.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
and then just slamming, and they have no idea when they're going to stop doing it. They might, after a certain point, someone will look at someone else and be like, "You think it's time to go into the next like thing?" And they'll
Yeah.
they'll do it.
Yeah. That's a
Like
great point, and not something I'd considered, but you're totally right that is improvisation as
yeah,
well.
it's definitely improvisation. Or even the drummer, like doesn't have to play the same thing every time, or the guitar player, especially if it's like those slower, drawn out, vibey sections. Maybe he'll want to like, boom,
Sure. Yeah.
boom,
Yeah.
or if he
Yeah.
has a whammy bar, like crank down the whammy bar for a spot. It's just, yeah. And those micro decisions, I think, go back to what we're talking about. Is you can tell that this band is really playing on stage, versus like being like fully buttoned up, knowing exactly what they're going to do.
Hmm.
I've wanted to have this conversation with like someone who plays like first chair New York Philharmonic, like someone who has to play the notes
Yeah.
like verbatim. Like how much flexibility do they have?
Yeah. Probably not any. I mean, what can you get away with? I mean, and in that style of music, do you even want to improvise? I don't know.
I think it might the improvisation might take the form more of like embellishing certain things, or like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like a trill, like how long they might,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
like pause and then go into the next spot. Like one night they might feel like drawing that out a little bit more than the previous night, or like a line that kind of does, some upward, up and down type of thing. They might accelerate it or not. But I think generally, I think that's something that they would have freedom with in terms of improvisation, but the actual notes and the
Hmm.
general structure of what they're doing pretty much have to be the same, or else you're not really playing the piece anymore.
If you've ever watched any like conductors run like a practice session, like you'll see like Leonard Bernstein talking with his orchestra. They're actually really specific about what they want. So the improvisation in that sense is normally up to how the conductor wants things. And then if anybody
Oh, okay.
is improvising, it would be like a soloist who's like performing a concerto.
Got you. That's interesting too. So I guess even the improv is sort of like almost predetermined, right? I guess, or not predetermined, but driven by the conductor of
He's
the
the
overall.
director of the whole show, right? He
Right,
says like
so in real
this is how
time,
I
yeah.
want things. This is my vision of this is how I'm interpreting this piece of music.
Interesting. Yeah, that's super interesting. I'd love to see an orchestra that improvises more than they don't. I'd love to know what that would be like.
I was just going to say, there is an orchestra called Black Orpheus that doesn't have a conductor.
Whoa.
I think it's mostly like classical music, but they choose to do it without.
Yeah, I would love to hear some of that.
There we go. Orpheus NYC. It's not Black Orpheus.
Oh, okay.
Their whole shtick is we've never had a conductor.
I love artists, bands, composers, whatever it might be. I love anybody who's driven to do something different, or something that hasn't been done or is frowned upon, whatever it is. It's just finding that thing that really inspires them, that isn't something that somebody else, or at least the mass amount of people, are doing. That's the sort of thing that I'm all about. Super driven to find that thing.
Now, one thing that comes to my mind with that is who's in charge? Because like think of like running a band. You got 6 people, 6 personalities you have to manage.
Yeah.
It's really hard to have everyone have democratic control of all that. So an orchestra, how many people are we looking
Right.
at? 40, 50, 100?
Yeah. I mean, it must be the sort of thing where they each sort of have their own vision, and then everybody just agrees. Maybe everybody it's like one of those things where the relationships are so tight. Everybody trusts each other's vision and understands that that's what the project is there to do and accomplish. And
Yeah.
so they just sort of let each other do their own thing. I don't know, but I'm curious as well. It's such an interesting concept.
They probably take turns like owning certain sections. Like this is very clearly a French horn driven section. So first chair French horn will get the opportunity to drive that thing. I'm speculating here,
Yeah.
but to an extent, I kind of know what I'm talking about when it comes to managing people and bands and artists and like music and stuff. So that's how I think I would do it. Like depending on what kind of section it's in, you would have ownership kind of transition from section to section.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
What have you found? Like that's because I'm on the same quest right now. My EP came out earlier this year. I'm starting to write some new music, but I've been inspired, and I'm trying to pull inspiration from places I've never looked before because same. I want to do something different. I've even been trying to think about what, like, when it comes time to make the artwork for this next thing I do, what do I want to do about that? Because
yeah, artwork's a big part of it.
yeah, and I've never made my own artwork, but I'm starting to think like there's more flexibility here, I think, than we let on in being an artist. I think there's more flexibility than you think, and whether or not those different variations will work, who knows? But you don't have to pay an artist to make you artwork. You could feasibly try to do it on your own.
Definitely. I tour with Fallujah, and Fallujah's vocalist Kyle Schaefer has his own project, Archaeologist, sort of like a solo project sometimes, and other times it's a band. Kind of depends on the album or the creative process, whatever it is. But his last record, which came out, I think in late June, it's called Elements. It's like 20 songs that are on the shorter side, and he did album art for each one, and he did it all himself. Wow. And then he did he compiled each piece of that artwork into one big piece for the album art. And then has like a CD booklet with all the artwork for each individual track in it. And I thought that was a really cool concept too. And calling the album Elements, and then sort of having each song like be an element, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's an interesting concept, but I agree that there really are no rules.
Yeah. And if we all race to just the music piece, I think we're missing like a lot of the fun.
Oh yeah.
Grown up going to a CD store and trying to find what was there, and like having to purchase based on what was available. And
sure.
Committing like, okay, this is $15. I'm just a kid. I don't have really, that's like half of all the money I have in this world. I'm going to make sure I make the right choice.
Got to roll those dice.
Yeah. And then you make sure you spend time with the material. You may actually read like all the liner notes, and it's kind of rare now that I actually know the names of individual songs. Like I know how songs sound, but there was a time when I knew that track 2 is this, track 8 is this, track 6 is this, and you kind of really fall in love with the music that you own.
Definitely. I still go to record stores, and when I am feeling like spending a little bit of money, what I'll do is I'll go to a record store and I will pick something that I have no idea what it is, but I pick it just solely based on the album art alone. And I take that home, and whatever it is what I got. It's a bit of a gamble sometimes, but
that's how I buy wine and pretty much any alcohol.
Really? Actually, honestly, same, because the artwork it's a massive, it's so crucial to me.
Yeah.
When I have synesthesia, so I have associations with colors and shapes and numbers and symbols and stuff, letters. But one thing that's really strong for me is when I'm listening to music, I'm sort of getting glimpses of the color palette that's on the artwork. So I start to associate the music with those colors because of the artwork that's in the middle of it.
Wow, that's cool.
So for me, the artwork and the visuals of an album are just as important as the music itself. And it's so much so, and I'm a little bit ashamed to say it, but if the artwork declines in quality, it makes me really upset when a new release comes out. Like if the artwork or if the logo of, if a band changes their logo and it's just not at the same, it does affect me, and it affects the listening for me. I think that's just me because I consider myself a very visual person, and I'm super passionate about artwork in general and artists. So I think that's just me, but it does affect things for me, you know.
A logo change is often a little jarring, even if it's like,
can be, for sure.
I remember when Kia came out with that new logo. I was like, what is this?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love that new logo.
I see it on cars all the time on their Kias, and I'm like, bruh, they really did change that logo.
So badass. It's like samurai
it is
swords.
A cool logo. It's a cool logo for sure. But it is jarring because it's a total brand change, and Kia is one of those brands, you know.
Yeah.
So I remember when Staples changed their logo to have the staple in it. Remember that? And the internet blew up. Everybody was like, "What are they doing? This is ridiculous." I didn't even really understand why anybody cared.
But man, I mean, really, really interesting how you bring that up. This is a topic that comes up pretty often on this podcast, which is like, music is not just something to be listened to, but it's more of an experience. And
100%. That's why I love vinyl, by the way.
Yeah, and with the guests that we speak with, everyone has their own particular perspective, and you know, the way that you really like have the artwork as like the center of what drives, or not what drives, but like is really what you're associating with the sound is really cool.
Oh yeah, well it just kind of is what it is. I don't really know why it is, you know, but for as long as I can remember, it's just the artwork has been like this sort of omnipresent part of the experience, you know. And maybe it comes from like going to record stores and CD stores when I was a kid, and you know, I would pick back then, you know, I'd go and look at all the CDs that were at the FYE, and I'd be super fascinated by the ones with the crazy artwork and the crazy logo and stuff.
Where's your artwork from?
Oh, so it's actually right behind me on the wall there. That is Brendan McAllister, who's a Massachusetts-based artist. It's his artwork, 100%. I was kind of just like, so I follow a lot of artists, painters, graphic designers, and I do it because I love it and I love looking at that kind of content, but I also am constantly sort of scouting for album art, potential artworks and things. And I came across Brendan's piece here, and it was exactly what I wanted for the album. That's
cool.
I couldn't have visualized it better myself.
Did you have the name Bad Brain already?
Yeah, I did, more or less. You know, I had working titles for it, but I originally was going to call it Bad Brain, No Serotonin, but then that just felt like
a lot
too much. Bad Brain felt a little bit more on point, so I just kept it.
It definitely fits perfectly with that art.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's the perfect artwork, and I think it encapsulates exactly the inspiration that I had for the music as well. Like, there's like a sadness in it, but also an irreverence and a creepiness to it, kind of. But it has the exact color palette that I am drawn to, which is, I'm looking at it on screen right now too. I don't know, just there's a warmth to it, and that I just really like. So yeah, I reached out to him, Brendan McAllister.
Brendan with an E?
Crazy talented artist.
Yeah,
and
all of his stuff is kind of washy, like kind of a little bit dark and washy like that. It makes you wonder if everything is going okay in that picture.
Yeah. But I reached out to him. I just sent him a message on Instagram, and he was super receptive to the idea right away. And I wound up, you know, I told him too that, I don't remember the exact conversation, but that I wanted lots of artwork, and I wanted to start having singles come out, and I wanted each single to have its own piece. And there's even a folder on my phone. What I did is I went through his Instagram and I just picked, you know, I have 100 or 150 pieces of his that I just think are super interesting, and there's got to be a piece of music that'll fit this someday. And so I have it all stashed away. Every couple of months when I'm gearing up to put something out for the last year, I've just sent him a message like, hey man, are these available? And sometimes he'll be like, no, they're not actually. Like some of them are commissions, and some of them, I don't know, they might be part of a gallery or something. But occasionally more often than not, he'll say, yeah, actually this one is. And then I'm like, sold, let me get that. And
yeah.
So it's been great working with him.
So for me, finding a way to, so again, like the big picture here is what we're actually doing. And for me, I'm trying to put something out there that's more than just the track at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
We can no longer compete on something like heaviness. There was a period where you could do that. There were tracks, singles were dropping, and like who cared what the art was, but like, my God, you hear how crushing this, like how loud it is, and how there was a time where that I think was fresh. At least for me, I think like telling the story about the whole picture is going to be really important again, and I say again because there was a time when albums came out like in the 90s, and you were told like what's the background of this album, like what inspired it, and there was like early hip hop records, like songs that use samples and stuff. What inspired you to use this sample? Oh, it was like a record that was left like in my dad's vinyl collection, and I used all of my dad's vinyls to produce all the samples on this album. And suddenly that becomes part of the story. The tracks are more meaningful because you understand, wow, this guy used samples of using songs that were left behind by his like estranged father or something. Things like that.
I think you're totally onto something there. And, a lot of the artists that I see on social media, at least, that are, growing exponentially or just already massive as all hell, I think they're great storytellers, and they have a relationship with their audience that folks who just put out music and say, big things coming soon, or like, new single out now, go stream it. That's just not enough.
With my purchase, like, I'll take one art, please, from the graphic designer.
Yeah, exactly. And it's ironic because those are all the things that, I myself have done and continue to do, and I'm actively trying to work around. It's difficult because I don't know. I think the people who are the great storytellers, they didn't set out to be great storytellers. They have worked at it, but not necessarily. And I could be completely wrong about this, but it feels like it's an intrinsic thing that they just are being themselves, as opposed to setting out to sell something. And maybe they get good at setting out to sell something, like get people to stream their record or buy their record or buy merch or whatever it is. But it really does feel like it's just them being themselves, the ones who are doing it really, truly successfully. But anyway, I couldn't agree more that it is about building. It's about storytelling. It's about the whole story. It's about what's going on behind the music as much as it is the music itself.
Maybe more, because you can write a song that's just like.
Yeah, 100%.
But then if you tell the story like, oh, that foot stomp was actually me falling out of the crib in the hospital. Like, that's not even a foot stomp. And people are like, oh my God, how did you get? Well, my dad was on the phone calling someone, and when he wasn't looking, and then somehow my grandma had a record playing, and it recorded it. And like,
yeah.
So it's like suddenly it doesn't become like a foot in a clap anymore. It's like,
good
holy
God.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential for this artist right here. If that's not their only story, that like that person's been through some shit.
Yeah. All the drums are actually the different times I've like fallen out of bed, and I have a microphone recording I have a microphone recording my bedroom every night that I go to sleep, and like from snoring to like
Yeah.
to sleep
my
talking
God.
to falling out of
Yes.
bed. Those are all the samples that I use in my recording. Anyway, my point is like the story and finding a way to tell the story is super challenging because you got to think like, all right, when am I going to have a camera rolling? What am I going to say? How do I tell this story in an engaging way?
That's the hard part. And I still don't know. It's very hard. This is partially, by the way, this is one of the many reasons that I really like live streaming is that I feel like I don't have to, all I have to do is be myself and just be, I don't know, be myself. It's not as easy as that, obviously, but there are moments where I catch myself just sort of, oh, I am just being myself now. Like I don't feel like I'm on a live stream anymore. I feel like I'm just hanging out with the other people who are hanging out here. That's good practice, I feel like, but it's also a potential way to tell some of those stories to people, but just putting the camera on for me personally, it's so hard. It's so hard. I'm not very good at it. I can do put the camera on and play some guitar, play a riff or something. But tell a story. I guess if you know the story, if I knew exactly what I was going to say, that'd be a little bit different. I have tried it a couple times, and most of the time I walk away feeling like, yeah, that didn't feel natural or good at all for me. What's your experience? Have you put a camera on and like tried to tell a story to an audience on Instagram or otherwise?
No, not like so. These are all kind of new ways of thinking because, like, completely honest, my last EP was hey, I need some artwork. Can you make something for me? Oh, that looks pretty cool. So like kind of going back to what you said before, you're finding more artists that are doing it. I don't think it's so obvious to everybody. It wasn't obvious to me. I think the more you do stuff, the more you want to change your process, and that's when things start changing. Like, oh, how am I going to introduce story to my music? And sometimes bands don't need it. Like sometimes like bands have formula. They're like, yeah, that's my art guy. He makes sick art. He does all of our album, and boom, done.
True. Yeah.
I don't know. Like we just went through a whole marketing thing with Ever Forthright where we sat down and kind of reminisced about old tour stories. We did little segments to kind of reignite listeners. We sat down in front of the project files for some of our older songs and went through like, oh, what inspired this section? When did this happen?
That's sick.
Yeah, and so people are going to hear for the first time, like, oh, the chord progression in Ever Forthright's Screen Scenarios was written when I was like in college, and it's actually a reharmony of a jazz standard called "I Hear a Rhapsody," and like,
Oh, damn.
and then
That's
maybe,
sick.
yeah, and exactly, doesn't that give the song a little bit more value? It's no longer just like
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's no longer just a bunch of chords. It's more than that now that you understand like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can imagine like a young Nick in a practice room jazz school reharmonizing a jazz standard and saying, you know what, screw it, I'm going to use this for my metal song. It just makes it more fun.
It humanizes it in a way that it otherwise might not have been.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Everybody just wants that human to human connection. And if you can give them that through the music, then you win.
And I'm getting a feeling that that's going to be more important than ever. Like we've all gotten really good at cranking out songs super fast, popping it on Spotify and go. But I think there is something happening where people are going to start appreciating like realness. I mean, we're seeing it with vinyls.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I love vinyl. God. It's just a side note. I love vinyl. I think I suspect, I could be wrong, but I think it's either you have to be good at that, and your music has to be good and great, or you have to be so incredibly special with your instrument that you don't have to do that. Because there are players that I see, at least in the social media expanse, the infinite void that is social media. I see players that are so just doing things that are just jaw dropping, and that's all they really have to do because it's so impressive. And if they keep doing the impressive things, and by the way, this is not, there's no shade here. This is just an observation that I have. And again, I could be totally wrong. I do feel like there is some truth to it, though, that if you are doing something that is so impressive to so many people that they stick around, I think that almost, it doesn't make it that you don't have to tell the story, but I think it kind of circumvents it a tiny bit in some cases.
I'd agree with you there.
Like some people are, just to take guitar for a second, I see, folks on Instagram, just doing things that are so technically insane, and some folks so musically insane too. And I think that sometimes taps into people in a way that the average person's great or even amazing music might not, because I don't know what it is. Maybe it's our attention spans now. Maybe it's just the way the music culture is. We're all fascinated by technicality. I don't know what it is, but
yeah, I think a lot of that too, like, lives on Instagram as well, though, and it's not really meant to go elsewhere.
Yeah, that's true too. I think
there's definitely a lot of people on social media that have a zillion followers, and they've mastered the highly engaging 20 to 30 second clip, but they have no reason to ever release an album, or they have no reason to ever release a music video. Like, there's that's just not what they do.
I think some of them I've seen have put out EPs or singles, and then I've seen guys like share numbers on those streams, and they're
just massive,
crazy. I really think that technicality, if you can have a massive following just built on that, and then get just like 10% of that reach to go check out your new track, sometimes that really translates into a crazy first week. Which of course then, according to Spotify, or all the YouTubers that talk about Spotify, will trigger the algorithm, which will get you even more streams. But it kind of it seems like it comes back from that technical aspect, or from that absolute astonishing playing aspect, in some cases.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to crack. That's almost like trying to say, let's go make a viral video. Like, how are you going to do that? Like, a viral video can be anything from like a shitty 5 seconds, like poor quality cell phone, the grab, to a 30-minute or, like super produced thing. Who knows how to make a viral video? It just kind of happens.
Yeah. I think some people are tapped into it. Maybe, but I think the majority of those viral videos, they're just things that happened and they got captured. Yeah. Like, now we're not really talking about music as much. I don't know. Did you see the video of the cop who went down the new slide in Boston?
Yeah, and now it's getting like remixed in all sorts of ways. How did he manage to?
Did you see the one that Isaac posted?
I don't think so.
Where the video is edited in such a way where
it goes down and back in.
The original goes down and back in, and then back down and
back in. I did see that.
And by the way, not laughing at this poor guy's misfortune. This is obviously a terrible thing. You don't want somebody to get hurt, but they didn't plan for that to go viral, right? That was just something that happened, and then the right person was filming at the right time, or the wrong time, depending on how you want to look at it. And I don't know the full story. I hope he's okay. But just to take that as an example, like viral videos, you're right. It's almost like a crapshoot. You just sort of roll the dice on stuff. It is chaos. Chaos. It's all this big mess, and occasionally you see, there's a little thing in the mess, and then there it goes, and you forget about it forever. And then maybe you see it again one day and you're like, how did I forget about this? It's hilarious. But it's because your brain is so washed.
I loved it when the Michael Jordan crying one first started, and people were just
Oh
sharing.
yeah, that's a fantastic meme. My God,
Yeah.
I've been experimenting with memes. Actually, I've only posted one. Memes that you know, for they are memes, but they also have my music in them.
I think I know which one you're talking about. I saw it.
The skeleton that's like in
Yeah.
hell and he's like
Yeah.
freaking out.
Yeah, that was so good.
I mean, it wasn't it. I didn't even that. I just put my music on it and put a little caption, and the caption was inspired by the other meme that I saw, the same format. I changed it a little bit so that I thought it was a little bit more polished for my purposes, but that's it. It's not really impressive or anything. It's just a silly meme, and it is. I mean, it's experimenting. I want to see what works more than anything else, and I also like the idea of making people laugh, but it's also a vehicle for getting my music out there more. Because my music's in it. So I don't know. I think there's something to be said about that, experimenting and trying.
Yeah, this was my one meme post. I'll share my.
Yeah,
screen real
please
quick.
please do.
And it's by far the thing that's been shared more than any of my content. Well, more so than the one recently. This has like over 100 reshares. It really kind of popped
Damn.
off a couple different things.
That's super sick.
So it's a chat GPT conversation that I screenshot and posted.
Shredding is way cooler, but it won't keep. Is that true? Like that's actually what?
No. I inspected Element and I rewrote the. Played with
I was
the
gonna
HTML.
say
No.
that does not sound like ChatGPT. That's absolutely hilarious, though. That's a great meme for
Yeah.
sure. There's that stuff really. I love memes. I think they're hilarious. I love when my friends send me stuff like that. And I've been having fun making them kind of quietly and stockpiling and coming up with different ideas. It's another creative outlet. Yeah, it's like the new currency, isn't it?
That would be cool because that would have put some money in my pocket if.
Yeah, right.
If it
Put some
actually
social
is.
money in your pocket.
Yeah.
You got some special points for it. But I think in a way it does connect people too. In a similar way to when you tell stories. It's different. You're not really telling a story, but you're giving somebody an emotional response instantaneously just by.
I think that's a story.
Yeah, I guess you could look at it like that. I mean, it's a part of what makes you laugh. It's a part of your sense of humor. It's a part of your story. And you're sharing the emotional response that you got from it with somebody else. So when you share that with a mass audience or even just a handful of friends in a group chat, you're connecting with those people, I think, especially if it's a hit, like if it's a really good meme, which I've yet to crack the code on those. I'm not like a meme lord or anything. Some of these meme pages where people are just churning out memes are really impressively funny.
Yeah, some people are just so damn funny with it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Finding a way to integrate that into music, I feel like is I think that's positive. Like, what was this is totally not the metal world, but what was the Old Town Road song? That was
It's been trending for like the past year, right?
yeah, I think it went viral last year. I think it had God, I'm just embarrassing myself at this point. But the artist behind it, I remember seeing something about how they were posting tons of memes on Twitter, just stoking the flames of this viral moment. And people were going crazy for it. Was it?
Is it that Running Up That Hill song?
No, but that one went viral too because of Stranger Things, right?
Yeah. Running Up That Hill.
Yeah.
That's a good song.
For a moment there, I was hearing that song everywhere. I actually started jamming over it for a handful of weeks there where I was just like, there's something interesting in this, I'm trying to get.
I keep on thinking.
Yeah, it was Lil Nas X. That's who it was. Lil Nas X. So he was posting hella memes just to keep it for promotion, of course, but also because it's funny and he's connecting with his audience that way.
It's a good idea. I wonder if like a meme could work for an album cover or a single cover.
Oh, I never thought of that. That's a great idea.
Or don't even commit to a full song. Just like do like 30-second tracks that are musical background behind particular.
It's the whole
memes or
album, just
something.
30-second tracks.
Yeah, I mean, it makes
Yeah.
it makes like the medium to enjoy it a little bit strange. Like, what are you supposed to do? Just like,
Yeah.
I guess it'd be meant for like Instagram. Like,
What if on Spotify your canvas was a meme for each song that went with the song, so that when you're listening to it, there's the visual, there's the meme right there on Spotify.
yeah, that could work.
That's so interesting. Nobody's doing that.
I was talking to my brother yesterday, and I was like, man, I got to think of something unique to do, like something to change it up. One, mainly for just to keep me going. Like, I want to find. Sometimes I need a reason to play music and play the guitar, and it's not enough just to say I want to put out a new song. Like, I'm motivated by finding ways to do things differently. Which is why
Definitely.
I play. I guess the way I play guitar, the way I do. Like, I try to do different shit on that thing all the time. But even like finding new ways to put out music, and he was like, just like release some music, but it's only available on cassette. I don't mind that idea. Like,
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting.
yeah, like the only way you're gonna enjoy this new music is you gotta buy a cassette. You gotta find a cassette player. But I'm kind of forcing you to make your own journey. If you want to enjoy my new songs, you gotta go find a cassette player.
That's so funny. Yeah, because some people are super into cassettes, though.
I don't know anything about cassettes. I do know that I'm more of a CD person because in my minimal research, they last longer than vinyl, and I guess supposedly sound better. I don't know, but they're also easier for me to store. Like, I have a bunch of CDs sitting up there, and they're not taking up a bunch of space. Also, I can take a CD into my car.
Oh, also, yeah. Can you imagine having a record player in your car and you have to like flip the vinyl at a red light?
Why are you driving with a record player? It's just going to skip all day anyway.
Oh, yeah. It's a terrible idea.
Like,
Listen, we've had two ideas. One's good. The memes idea, that's good. The vinyl in the car, not a good idea. We scrap that. We'll just forget that never happened.
The all new Kia with 5 vinyl changer.
Yeah, it's a giant slot.
You got to have
where
like a
CD would be.
Gnarly suspension system just for that record player.
Yeah. We got rid of the AC in this car so that we could make room for this giant slot that you shove a record into. It's going to ruin your vinyl, but listen, there's no practical purpose to this.
This new car doesn't come with a trunk because the trunk is entirely filled up with this like Ferris wheel carousel style.
Oh my God.
10 vinyl changer.
You just have a jukebox in your car.
Yeah, this is a jukebox in a car.
The car
This is in the
weighs
back
like
seat, this big ass jukebox.
Yeah, the car,
suspension.
the weight in the back.
Yeah, you just constantly.
It's dangerous as all hell because it's so heavy in the back. And any move where you're like, oh God, you like swerve and you just immediately start barrel rolling. You're like, was it worth it?
I'm actually really curious. Could you read records with a laser?
That's a really interesting question. Probably, right? Maybe. Well, but a laser is I think the laser disc, it's like so precise. And the grooves on a record, it's like the needle needs to be a certain.
Right. So it would have to read it a little differently, right? Instead of it reading in binary, it's more just it's reading all the hills and valleys, and then it's kind of extrapolating that data. And then
I'm sure it's got to be possible, like a translation of what this would have sounded like if a needle were to graze over it. It's got.
I'll tell you what. If y'all want to retire early with me,
let's do this.
We should create a record player that looks just like a record player, but no needles. It's just a laser. It's like a little.
And it doesn't spin. It just sits there.
Just sits there.
Interesting.
And then like there's just like an optical laser at the top that just barely.
It's all refracted light.
It's like a pendulum.
It's a pendulum.
Yeah, and it's just like above, and it just gets closer and closer to.
Well, somehow AI is involved as well. So like AI.
Yeah. Oh, it has to be.
Know.
Yeah. It's got
Well, right.
Chat GPT built into it.
It works like a Roomba where like if it hasn't passed this way before, it picks it up. If it's already passed this way, it doesn't.
No, fuck that. It's not like a Roomba. It is a Roomba.
It is a Roomba.
It's literally a Roomba. It's built onto a Roomba.
Now we're
You
talking.
know what it should be? It should be like we tell everybody that it's a laser that reads the record and all that. But in reality, the AI system just pulls up Spotify internally and plays it out of a speaker. People are like, "Oh my god, this laser is listen to the quality on this. This sounds better than my old record player."
That's so good.
It's just like you have a great Wi-Fi connection, dude.
That is the best scam for music.
That would be pretty sick, though. Can you imagine like having a record player and you put your record on and then you press a button and it goes, it's like a little lightsaber that spins around on the record and it looks like a needle, but it's a red beam of light.
Well, I think that would be very human of it. Like you don't have to include the laser, like the note, the visual laser, but I think it would make it very human to like be able to see with your eyes where it is reading on the.
That would be cool. That would be really cool. You know, there's a little device you can buy. It's like looks like a tiny car, like an old van. You know what I'm talking about exactly. And it has a needle under it. You place it on top of your record, and it drives around the record, like it drives in circles around, and it plays the record for you. It's kind of a crazy.
Yeah, those are cool.
Yeah.
Ah, fuck! It's called a laser turntable. It already exists.
Do they have it for your car though? That's the question.
Do you have it for your car?
And you know what? It's kind of old too. It's been around.
But has it been manufactured by three guys who sort of know how Instagram works and can run ads on it and target a very niche audience?
The problem
make the millions. Probably not.
I'm not seeing any catchy content here. These are all pretty bad videos. So that's where we're gonna flip this thing on its head. Oh shit! This one levitates.
How's that? Cool. Magnets?
Anti-gravity vinyl.
It's just a floating vinyl.
What they do is like they super cool it, and then they have a superconductor so it stays in place.
Listen, you dip your records in liquid nitrogen. Step 1. Step 2, do not drop your record.
Shouldn't step 1 be get liquid nitrogen?
Step 1, listen, this record player, the liquid nitrogen is not included. There's a little 9-volt battery in the box, but you got to get your own liquid nitrogen.
I think it'd be really funny, even just to make a joke product where you like you said, you put the vinyl into the record player, you close the lid, and then you like tell it what song it is, and it just grabs it off of Spotify.
I think that's hilarious. I think that's the funniest. Oh my god,
that's like the spoof product or whatever.
This is how you actually make it in the music industry. I think. Is you got to do a thing like that where it's like a product and it's a scam. These are the keys. I think we're unlocking the keys to success here, here.
It sounds a lot easier than practicing a lot.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, it does. Why do we practice?
I mean, actually right now I'm in more of a writing, like conceptual phase than I am with practicing. I'm really like, I just picked up the guitar today for the first time in like a week, and I've just been like just playing on Logic, playing with different sounds, listening to a lot of music. I mean, active listening is a full-time job. Like if you're gonna put on some music and like try to listen to it while not multitasking, in a way that's practice. It's not practicing the guitar, but
yeah. What's oh god, I'm terrible with names. Dude from Black Flag, what's his name? Henry Rollins,
the actor, right?
He has this concept of protein listening and carb listening, where when you're doing your protein listening, you're like listening to something you've never heard before, and something that's well, I guess that's just the basis of it. It's protein for you. But then carb listening is just like you're listening to your favorite record, like you've heard it 100 times. And you're just listening to it because you want to hear it. It's like the protein is building muscle. It's, it's enriching you. And the carbs is just putting on fat. And it's just funny. Storing up fat.
That's a cool analogy.
And by the way, no shade to carb listening. And I don't think he meant it in that way. I'm just saying it sort of quasi sarcastic way. But
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of new music, but I also listen to a lot of music I'm very familiar with. I think that there's something to be said about doing both. You know. So.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I have been trying to listen to only stuff that I do purchase though.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like I'll put on like Spotify DJ every now and then to find something new, but I don't often stream like an album from Spotify anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because I feel like I'm missing a big part of the experience.
Yeah, fair.
If I'm going to stream, like I just picked up like a Tribe Called Quest's Low End Theory, like 1991, I think, and I was watching their documentary first, and then I popped it on Spotify for a bit just to get a sense of what the vibe is, and but I didn't want to listen to it that way. I was like, these are just kind of in ear one out the other ear songs. I'm missing context, so I picked up the album. I read the liner notes. I kind of did a little bit of research. I watched, I finished that documentary, and suddenly the value of those songs just went right up. I was like, this is a much better way to listen to something as opposed to just popping something on Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify does allow me to do my whole album art browsing thing, which I really love. Like, it'll recommend me albums I've never heard of, artists I've never heard of, and I'll just go, that's sick artwork. I'm going to listen to this with no overhead. I don't have to worry about dropping $25 on a record that I know I don't vibe with at all.
Well, there's CDs. CDs are like 10, 12 if you can find a good used one. So,
well, yeah, and that's the other thing. But then you have to like go to a store, or you have to look online and browse, and then have it shipped to you. And by the way, not knocking it down at all. I think it's buying music is still something that I like to do, and especially records. There are a handful of records that. Basically my record collection, here's how I think about it when I'm deciding whether or not to buy a record that I love. If it's a record that I want for when records are no longer produced because the apocalypse has happened and I want to just listen to it at a bunker before the electricity goes out, that's a record that I want to buy and own. That's how important that record is to me. It has to be. So I don't just if I had endless money, I would buy all the records, every single album that I like.
It's hard to find some now. Like I was looking for like a Beastie Boys album because I watched that documentary too recently. So good. Again, just going back to like trying to understand the origins of some things a little bit better, and trying to find like an original explicit version of one of their albums was extremely challenging to do. And tons of clean versions, but that's not the one I wanted. I wanted the the original, or like Thordendall's
Special Defects.
Special Defects. Trying to find is really fucking. You do?
I do
on vinyl.
I do. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty sick. I found like two used CDs of it for like $100 a piece on. Hey, let me grab something real quick.
Oh, for sure. At least I think I do.
This is the.
Sick, dude.
This is the unopened demo print.
Wow, man.
Oh wait, no, this one is opened. This is the demo that you order, like when you want to, like you confirm everything looks good and you tell them, okay, I'll take 100 of those or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This is the very first one we got.
That's so sick, dude. I'm
like
glad you still have that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. Mm-hmm.
This
very
is
sick.
Yeah, like pretty much. I have no idea who even has this still sitting around on their shelves anywhere. This is unopened. This is an unopened digipack of what we ended up printing, and then this is an unopened demo from before anyone even knew who we were.
I got that right behind me.
Yeah, it's really not very good, but it's kind of cool.
It's a part of the story. It's a part of who y'all are. You should pull a Mr. Bungle and release it. As the demos. Yeah. You know what they you know how they did that last year? Or 2 years ago or something? They took the record before their first record, which was like, at that point they were a thrash band. And they re-recorded it and then released it as a new album. And they were like, hey, these are our demos. Here they are today. Yeah. It's kind of a cool concept.
There's definitely riffs on this that we could do that. Like they're perfectly good riffs, but they just didn't have the. I mean, sometimes you strike sometimes the iron is hot for only like a little bit,
Yeah, sure.
and you got to make sure you hit when the iron is hot. Iron
Mhm.
has not been that hot for me lately, but you know, I've said this a bunch of times. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And as long as
I
you
like
don't,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and as long as you
Yeah.
don't stop, eventually the iron is hot again.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I mean, it's just a matter of time, you know. As long as you stay alive,
Yeah, as
then
long
and you keep going,
keep going.
then it really is. I mean, I don't think if you really try and you really put forth true effort and you put yourself out there, and you're present, I don't think you just won't have any opportunities or luck. I think that it is just not going to happen that way. Like there's no way that somebody's so unlucky that they do all that and nothing happens and then they die of old age. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. I don't think. I hope not.
Some people are more successful than others, but I mean, if you're good at what you do and you're not delusional, um, yeah, like something hits eventually. I got to recommend that Beastie Boys documentary because it is really good.
But yeah.
They're at a theater in Brooklyn. They're pretty much doing a live like presentation for a crowd in Brooklyn, and that's the documentary. It's really good. It just goes back to their roots, talking about how they were a punk band and then got into rap and this and that. But they were like, yeah, our second album like was the big budget album after a super successful first album, and then crickets. Like the iron wasn't hot anymore. But you know, we kept at it and kept on playing shows, kept touring, and then third album was a hit. So you don't really know. And then that second album years later turned out to be like one of the most you know, revered as one of the most innovative albums in hip hop, and it just took time. It took time.
That's wild to me. I'm you know, bringing this back to artists like Vincent van Gogh, obviously a little, but you know, one of the most famous painters of all time, despised in his lifetime, and now heralded as one of the best of all time. Like that does happen, and it's kind of scary that can happen. But it is. Yeah. It's also a little bit. I guess it depends how you look at it, because you can also look at it as freeing in the sense that it doesn't really. It's out of your control how people are going to take in the music, as long as you're getting it out there. So you just have to make it the best that you can and make it for you. Ultimately, you know, you got to make it in a genuine way, genuine to yourself. And as long as you're not just like uploading it to Spotify and then disappearing, or, you know, you gotta put it out there and you got to promote it and you got to push it and all, you know, do all the things that you got to do. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's not up to you or anybody how it's received, even in 100 years.
Sometimes it's a crapshoot. Sometimes it's not. It is kind of, once again, chaos. You can do your best, and with some good certainty, you know, you can put something out there based on past experience and general, just kind of common sense, you know. Like, and we mentioned this with the viral video. Sometimes you just don't know, like, what
You don't.
is going to hit, what's not going to hit, why something hits, why something doesn't hit.
I've had some of my more successful, quote unquote, successful videos on YouTube were videos that I really expected to do pretty well, but it took a while. It took a while. My most successful video on YouTube, though, I didn't try at all. It was just this riff I was tracking. I was like, hey, why not throw a camera on me and upload it? And I just did, and then it blew up in a day. It was crazy. By the end of 2 weeks, it was like, it was the most views I'd gotten on any video by a factor of 2 in the hundreds of thousands. I mean, like,
Wow.
And it was something I just put out there without any thought.
You saw what I posted the other day, right? I was like,
probably what?
It was just me playing guitar on the couch, and
yeah,
and you somehow I don't often get more than like 3,000 views on my reels that I post, but this one got to like 5,100 and was shared like 15 times, and it's like, what? I'm just playing like some little noodly stuff on the couch, and I think I have a good theory why, and it's probably something I'll try again. But yeah, just don't know.
Well, the curse then for me with that is that I now in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, it's constantly influencing me whether or not I'm trying too hard or whether or not I'm throwing something away. Or as soon as I think to myself, I'm really just not, I really don't care about this one. I'm just throwing it up there. Maybe it'll go viral. And then of course it never does because now I'm thinking about it. Like that's the only difference. You know what I mean? It's like obviously the thinking about it doesn't change the outcome unless it changes how you put it out there, how you make the thing. I don't know. It's a mental game again, just making content and putting stuff up. And I'm happy that worked for you though. That couch video.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big reason why I've been like, not turning on this particular camera the last couple of days. Like I haven't done a fancy looking video in some time just because it's getting comparable views to if I don't do it.
I've thought about doing a phone camera videos just to see how it changes things. Yeah.
You got any stuff coming up?
So Fallujah's going to Australia in like 3 weeks. Our first show is on September 12th, I think in Brisbane. I could be wrong about that, but tickets are moving fast. So Australia, I'm very excited about it. I've never been.
I was just going to ask if you've been there before. That's cool. I saw Fallujah headline a show opened by Alluvial like a year ago in the city. Were you playing guitar?
Yep. I was there. That was the first tour that I did with them. Was that in New York then? That was at the Meadows?
In Brooklyn, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun show. That was the night we'd all met, everybody on the tour package.
Yeah, because it was the first one,
It was the first one. But Fallujah, we had done 2 routing dates before that. So we felt like we were getting our groove together as a new lineup. And at the same time, we all were just, met up with all the other bands and guys on the package. And it was just a blast through and through. A lot of fun. Good show.
Yeah, that's cool. We didn't know each other. We didn't know each other yet. I hadn't heard of your stuff yet. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had still only released a small EP in the background many, many years ago. And like miscellaneous here. But yeah, solo album's out now. So, happy about that.
It's very good. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I have.
Oh yeah,
I have some of my favorites. I had a note here to talk to you about like classical influence because there does seem to be like
definitely
a big. Your harmonies and progressions seem very classical driven until they're not.
I love that you picked up on that because it's 100% true.